Hi, everybody. Jay Baba. Hope everybody's having a good week. I'm actually super excited about this topic because I've been wanting to do it for a little bit, but I was like, maybe it's too worldly. And I was like, no, we got to talk about it. So can I get somebody to read the email? Are there any volunteers? Okay. I'm gonna ask Josh if he would do it because he personally emailed me telling me how excited he was about this topic. And so I'm gonna put him right on the spot.
Okay, no worries. Feel free to make me do it. All good. Okay.
All right. It's all you. Can you see it okay?
I can, yeah. Okay. Jay Barber, everyone. That's to you. Okay. This topic is probably a bit of a strange one to pop up in your inboxes, but I know that is something everyone has to deal with at some point. That being said, it is also a topic that is considered a bit taboo in the world to talk openly about and not particularly spiritual. Why is that? Sometimes I always loved so much about Baba was how practical he was. He never told people to stop working, wander in a desert, and just meditate on God. In fact, he did just the opposite. He would directly tell his lovers who had a longing to leave the world behind to get back to their lives and not shirk their worldly responsibilities. It has always confused me why more of his lovers don't openly talk about how we turn our finances over to him. We seem to have an easier time discussing the other intricacies of the path, but when it comes to the more practical subjects, there seems to be avoidance. Don Stevens said that he put his sexual and financial life completely in the hands of Meher Baba. But how did he do this? I have always been intrigued by this statement every time I heard it in my life with Baba. We can't let our rent go unpaid, so how do we not worry about money? Has this come up in your life with Baba? How do you balance the ideal that Baba will see to everything, but still take responsibility where necessary? Sometimes there are times in life where we have to work a little harder and take action to provide for ourselves and our families. How do we go about doing this without becoming too attached to an outcome? These are just a few questions that come to my mind very often. I feel finances is the one thing I have trouble having full faith in Baba about because it is dealt with on such a worldly level of necessity. Is this your experience? Personally, I am so looking forward to this conversation. In his love, Margi and Peter.
Thank you. And Josh, I'd like you and everybody to know that I did get Grammarly on my computer. So I now have a proofreader. So I won't have grammar or spelling mistakes in my email anymore.
Well, I added some in there, you don't worry. You've taken them out, but I can add them back in when I'm in my reading.
But I have a comment that's not a proofreading comment. You said most Baba people aren't willing to talk about how we turn our finances over to him. And I think that's not what you meant, because none of us are giving him money. We're not turning our finances. We're turning We're turning our results.
Our faith in our finances.
Yeah, the result in the finance. Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Thank
the only
you for
thing.
clarifying.
Because we found out that our kid one time said, "I hope they're not giving my inheritance away."
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, yes, and let me just clarify, that is not what I meant. I did not mean turn our money over to Baba directly and just, give it away or something like that. I mean, dealing with our financial circumstances in life. Because it's such a practical issue. And it comes up all the time. I feel like it's really easy for me to have faith that Baba knows what he's doing with my life. But then when it comes to money, I'm like, okay, Baba, but I have to take some action. So how are you, what am I supposed to do here? And it feels like you're letting me out to dry. But when I look back in my life personally, he's never let me out to dry, no matter how much I thought I was going to be. I remember I came home from India one trip. I had $62 in my bank account and I had no place to live, no car. I mean, I think I was 18. And somehow everything just worked out fine. And I've never gone hungry. I've never, we've all had our struggles, but so I'm just curious what other people's experiences have been, or if this is something that you struggle with in your life with Baba. That being said, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Does anyone want to jump out of the gate with some, even just sharing what they're, okay. Oh, well, okay. We've got, looks like Ken first. And then Terry, you had your hand up, right? Okay, we'll go to you next.
Oh, we could let Terry go first.
Okay.
Hey, Baba, everyone. It's interesting how in my particular life, I was raised with a family that had a really hard time making a living. So I knew I wanted to do something in life where I could support myself. That was really important to me. And money's always been an issue. It's always been scary and difficult for me. And I don't think I've ever come into comfort with it. However, with Baba in my life, which for me is like a dozen years, slowly but surely the veils are lifting to where I'm trusting like hard work and a lifetime of, being kind, and that it's going to be okay. And I really try and let it go, which I never thought I would in life. So it's kind of an incredible relief. And I think maybe it's my maturity and that I've already put so much time and energy into it that it's time for a break. So, but it's where I'm at. So it's pretty interesting. And like you, Margie, there were times I had popcorn for dinner, but I never starved. So he's watching over us. Absolutely. You want to say something?
Not right now.
Okay.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
I always love your perspective that you bring. Okay. Sorry, Peter. I didn't mean to jump over you. I didn't realize. Anyway. All right. We got Ken up next.
Hey, I don't know where to begin. I'll give you the unworldly perspective. How's that?
Okay, that works.
Because I've never thought much about money ever in life, I don't think. I guess part of that's growing up middle class. My father was a very hard worker and always, and I, whether rebelling or whatever, I was sort of the opposite. So I should have written that book, The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment. And so I kind of failed at marriage, and, and I lived without money for many years, basically. I think one year I lived on maybe $400 or $500 for the whole year, maybe $800. I still managed to go to India. One time I sold the car that my grandfather had given me, or actually traded it for a ticket with Bill Cliff, and that was in '82, I guess. And one time I had a friend who had a college bookstore, and so I worked for 6 weeks straight during rush, and made the $1,200 to buy a ticket to India. And as you say, actually Don said that those are the two things he didn't turn over to Baba for many years. And then finally he did.
Oh, okay.
So he had the same issue, I think, that you had, thinking it was something on the side, But a couple like quick stories come to mind in terms of how things work out. One of those times I was living without money and I got a really bad tooth infection. And so I had to go to the dentist, and I guess my mother lent me the money, and I think the bill was like 100 and, I'm just guessing, but this is like 1980s, maybe it was $180.68. And then I got a check working in the bookstore soon after that. And it was for $180.68. Another time, I basically had no money. I was living on nothing, and I picked up my weekly mail, and there was a letter for a Baba book that had just come out, and it was Paul Smith's Hafiz translation. 2 big books. It was $65, which was a lot of money in 1980s. I mean, a lot of money. And in the flyer, there was one poem. So I read the poem and I started crying, you know, and a lot of people find his translations hard to relate to. You have to really spend time to get into them. I ended up spending 3 or 4 months reading them, in 3 in the morning in a cabin in the woods through the winter. But how I ended up getting the book. So, I felt like Baba's, this is touching me. I should get this book, but how could I possibly get it? And then there was another letter from my ex-wife, which I wasn't expecting. And I opened it up and there was a check for $65. Literally in the same bit of mail. So rather than, use the brain and say, you can't spend this $65 on a book, you have literally nothing in the bank. I just said, no, Baba, I guess you want me to do this. And got the book, but so, again, with Baba, each person has their different path, Soon after I met Donna and moved in with Donna back in, and we're coming up on 30 years now. In 1995, I just felt called to not touch money. So for the next 7 years, I didn't touch money at all. And she was my bag man. But it did help me break the mental thing with money, and it was also, it made me realize how the controlling side of my personality that I hadn't really worked out. I couldn't tell her what to buy or not to buy because she was stealing. She was responsible for all the money, so I had to really learn to let it go, and not judge, oh, that's wasteful, or I wouldn't do that, or, whatever those, impulses were. And then at some point, it just felt like, let that go. Didn't need to do that anymore. And now it's just paper. And you might say, well, you can say that because this, and we lived on very little for a long time, but we did have some guaranteed income. So, Baba was providing that way. But it's the easiest way to make money is to not spend it. And I think, I see people that struggle with money, and often it's really not, money is not really the issue. It's their psychological need to either feel desperate or feel unworthy of feeling safe or whatever it is, and they're constantly shooting themselves in the foot, in a sense. And that they need you, Margi. They need a life coach to help them see what's the real issue, why they're always broke, no matter what they do or whatever it is. And it's hard in today's world, but where you put your energies is where you end up. So I put my energies over the years, and I ended up having a little cabin in the woods that I didn't have any rent on, and there was no water, no electricity, and the owner of the land wanted me to live there. And I could work for my neighbor, make a couple of dollars here and there, or pick up pop cans on the roadside, clean up the road, and get a nickel for each one, and live on rice and beans. And the trouble with that life, unless you're really ready to be there, you can just make yourself crazier living alone. The blessings of a relationship is you have someone to bounce back and forth on, of course, and help you see where you're missing your things you haven't worked out yet. So that's a couple things. And I did remember the Lud Dimple story. I don't know if you know that story. I've just found it in Ivy Deuce's book.
No,
but briefly.
Share it. Please, I said share it.
Yeah, I'll give a little briefer version, but I can tell you the page number if you want to read the details. But basically, his wife was always concerned about money and thought he was a spendthrift, and he felt he was the exact opposite. And he had asked to speak to Bob about something personal. So Baba called him in, and This is in 56 in California. And because he had just been talking with his wife, he said something about money to Bob. And Bob said, oh, you shouldn't have brought up money. And he was, oh my God, no, my one chance. And Bob says, no, you said it. Now you have to talk about it. So his wife was, upset that she wanted a new house. And he said, well, we can't afford it. And Baba says, she wants a new house. You should get her a new house. He's saying, oh, then we won't be able to send the kids to college. I'm saving up for college. And Baba said, no, you have to get the best education for your kids. You have to send them, to school. Don't skimp on that. And he says, well, the only way I can save money then is to stop supporting the Sufi Center in San Francisco. And Baba said, no, no, you can't. No, you keep doing that. So he's got it all computed in his head. Well, there goes my savings, will be broke in 5 years, but Baba says, I got to do this. So, oh, and then is anything else? And she says, Baba, he doesn't have enough insurance for me. I never feel safe. And Baba says, you get her all the insurance she wants. You got to take care of her. So what's he going to do? Well, he gives it to Baba, of course. And what happens 2 or 3 years later, his company tells him, we need you to go to the Middle East. And, because it's whatever, we're going to double your salary for while you're over there. Something to that effect. So, of course, the money came, And Baba said to him, I don't say this to anybody, usually never tell anyone this, but for you, you'll never have to worry about money. And one quick story. There's a story where Baba had said, my lovers will never go hungry. So there was an Indian lover once, and I forget the details, but basically maybe his car broke down, or he was in the middle of nowhere and he didn't have anything with him to eat. And it's getting later in the day and he's thinking, Baba said we'd never go hungry, but here I am. And, all alone, I'm going to go hungry. And with that, he sees this, I think it was a young boy trotting across the field. And the boy comes up and says, I saw you broke down here and I thought maybe you would want to share my lunch.
Wow.
So
That's really sweet.
If Baba can watch out for every little thing, finance is not a big deal. But you do have to find that. It doesn't mean you say, oh, I'm going to buy this dress because I look so hot in it. And, I'll worry about the rent next week. There's always a balance of practicality but also honoring yourself and your needs. And that's my 2 cents for today.
No, thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. And I think it's very true. There's this dance, I think, that sometimes happens. And since no one has their hand up yet, I'm going to share a little bit. But my relationship with money throughout my life has always just been like, well, whenever I need money, it comes in. And Baba just pours it in. I don't really worry about where it comes from, but I've just made this transition of starting my own business, which I've done before. I started a fitness business, but I was still working on the outside. And so it took off, but I had the security, and I feel like Baba's having me jump in full feet. And I'm having this weird balance for the first time in my life of, okay, Baba, I feel that you want me to start this business, but it's not making any money yet. So where am I supposed to just keep going and trust that you're going to handle everything? Or am I supposed to take action and maybe get a side hustle to do that? And so it's just something that's been in my consciousness a lot of okay, Baba, I'm not expecting this magic check to come in the mail, but I need a little direction of where you want me to take action and responsibility versus where I'm supposed to trust that everything is going to be taken care of. How much is being taken care of through me? And then how much is just being taken care of by your special hand that I can't see? But just my thoughts. Okay, Peter, who we got?
All right, and question for everybody about playing lottery. How many of you all play Mega Millions weekly, daily, monthly, scratch off tickets? I mean, that counts. That's
Never.
Could be big money.
But
all right,
there was a Baba lover. No,
yeah.
if I can just Well, never mind. There was a Baba lover who played the lottery all the time and claimed he made thousands of dollars, but of course he probably spent tens of thousands of dollars on tickets. And
Exactly.
never
So
hit the big time before he died.
So the real winners were all the education that the lottery benefits.
There you go.
All right. Tina, you're up next.
Well, I wanted to present a different perspective. I came from a family that was very well off. They didn't have any money problems. I was always taken care of financially. And I get these checks in the mail from the movies I've done. And yesterday I got a check for $1,300, over $1,300. And so I feel like it's not an issue for me.
Yeah, but $1,300 doesn't go very far in New York City, does it?
Yeah, it does.
Just teasing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm getting a tax refund of $4,400. I'm just getting. I don't know. I never worry about money. I always just buy whatever I want, and I don't worry about money.
Yeah. I think it kind of allows when there's a trust, allows Baba to come in and sort of take charge of it. But I don't know, I feel personally that there's like a tug of war, and some people's karma is to totally like be like you, Tina, just like, oh, okay, I trust it, everything's going to be okay. And then other people's karma is like to always be struggling with that, just like everybody has their different thing that they struggle with. And I know for so many, finances is so practical that I'm like, okay, what are just some like little tools that we use to turn over to Baba?
Well, since I've done these movies and they pay me passive income from residuals, it's really nice to get those checks.
Yeah, that's amazing. Baba's got you taken care of through the back door.
Baba
Right,
definitely
Peter.
does. Baba definitely does have you taken care of, Tina. He has all of us taken care of. I mean, we all have a couple of credit cards that we charge to Jeff Wolverson's account anyway. So I mean, when in doubt, I just pull out that credit card, Mr. Jeff W. Wolverton. All right, Josh, you're up next.
Yeah, me too. I do that with Jeff.
Yeah, we all do.
Just keep it coming. Keep it coming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then we get Jeff to declare bankruptcy, and it's all good, Isn't this the loophole? Isn't this the loophole?
Yep.
That's why Jeff didn't have any kids this life, so nobody would have to take on any of his debt or anything like that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? How like different people have different relationships with money. It's very, very interesting. I ever since I was a child, I've always been money focused to the point where I'd get $10 a week pocket money, $10 Australian back then. So it's probably like about $7 American. And I just wouldn't spend it. I just wouldn't spend it. I'd just save and save and save. And by the end, I think I had like about the equivalent of 7,000 American dollars from just saving. I think it was probably 10 years of pocket money that just never got spent or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, a lot. And my brother's quite different, same genetics, but my brother was happy to spend it on regular things like meals and things like that, and which is good. So he obviously didn't have this worry, and I think this is probably what it is. It's worry. And this is one of the reasons why I feel like I'm so on board the reincarnation train, is because I've always felt this it feels like I've been poor before. I've been very poor before. And so for me, money has been such a strong part of my life that I've literally decided to study business just to give me a good money foundation. And I'm not one of those left brain logical Baba lovers. I'm one of those artsy write poetry Baba lovers. and I'm studying business because I still have this what is it, whatever this karma is with money. But yeah, but I wouldn't say, like, as someone who studied, I think it is very important to think about, because when I look at the world today, there are so many people literally starving to death, literally in poverty, just because of the imbalance of this thing, you know, this monetary thing. And so I think it is very powerful to look at. And I think to a lot of detriment, to a lot of Barb lovers' detriment, they ignore financial sides of things, I think, which and I mean, maybe I'm wrong, like maybe they're right and I'm wrong, but that's my perception. I think it is very important, and I think it is something to focus on. Well, not, but yeah, obviously I think that being a good person is better than having money, but I do think I can help a lot of people with money, you know, and that's why I want to try to get into ethical sort of not-for-profits and stuff like that. But yeah, basically this whole topic is very interesting to me, and so I've got lots more to say, but would love to hear from some other people as well. Yeah,
I really like what you kind of brought up too, Josh, is sometimes, you know, earning money, it's all the relationship with money, like you said, Ken. It's not like, okay, can I have the dollar amount, but what does going out and getting money get you? Like, does it give you more freedom to be able to help more people, right? And so if everybody is like, and not there's anything wrong with it, but like everybody's like, oh, I'm gonna go just never touch money, and then all of this lack happens in the world. It's like, where's the balance? Like, how are you, I guess it's your intuition, but it's kind of determining whether your karma in this life is to be detached from money and having a lot of it, or being detached from it and having none of it, kind of finding that balance. But
All right, next up we have Tony.
Yeah, hi. I really like this topic, and I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to say about it, but but it's an issue. It's always been an issue. It's been a life issue. At some point, it was clear to me that I had to have an income coming in that was solid and dependable, and I had to be able to pay for an apartment, or whatever it was. I without going into my own specifics, I had to drop. I was majoring in music, and I started late because I had started late, and then suddenly I had to graduate quickly because money was going to run out. I had some money coming in from my father's Social Security when he died, and so I had to drop the music, which is what I wanted to study, and I wound up doing work that wasn't what I wanted to be doing, my music, my creative stuff. And I always felt this conflict between the two. But through it all, I was always, money was a source of stress. The one turning point was I was driving to work at the UN, and I was talking to Baba out loud in the car. And I finally just said, Baba, I'm feeling really scared. I'm really feeling scared. This is what my finances are. This is what my bills are. I have no idea how I've got this debt. I've got to, and I wasn't asking for anything. I was just sharing how scared I was. And I got to the UN, and I happened to mention in passing, that a flip comment, something about debts or something, to a friend, and he said, well, go to the credit union. They give debt reconsolidation loans, and you've been working, you got a permanent contract. I walked in, and for a very low monthly payment for a couple of years, I was rich, so to speak, because I had way more cash coming in, and my debts were being taken care of. And basically, I mean, there are other things more serious along the way, but the overall lesson has been, it's about trust, and it's about trusting Baba. And as I was thinking of saying that just now, money itself is based on trust. Financial money is based on trust. We have a trust that it's worth this amount. In God we trust, trust accounts. And for us, it's especially about trusting Baba. The bigger story My brother, my mother, my father died when I was 9. He had gotten mortgage insurance on the house they had just bought a few years earlier. So when he died, my mother only worked seasonally, but we had a house to live in. It was all paid for because of the mortgage insurance. And my mother always made it clear that it was to be divided at some point when you're older, you and your brother are older. It'll be divided, the two of you. You can sell it and split the money, but it would be shared, the two of you. By the time that came about, she was 86 when she passed. Things had gotten very weird with my brother, who had some. We have karma. We have karma, envy karma, and anyway, he wouldn't leave the house, and he sabotaged efforts to sell the house. And I had taken out a big mortgage on this house and then refinanced it, knowing that eventually, at some point, I mean, I was not hoping for my mother to die, but I knew when that house comes, I can use that to pay off this mortgage. And that'll be probably around when I'm retiring from the UN. And suddenly we were in legal battles for 6 years. He was very, not to be political, but he was very Trumpian. He was always switching items and changing things and lying and getting you caught up in something. And when he died, I got some portion, but I had to pay off his debts, and there was no way I could pay off my mortgage with that. I could pay it down a bit. And it dawned on me somewhere in all of this that I simply had to trust Baba, that Baba was taking care of us, taking care of me, whether it was stressful at the time or it got, at other times, it was not so stressful. I had to start from the place that Baba's looking after me. I have to do all the things I have to do, but it's up to Baba the way it turns out and what comes my way, and to accept it, even if it's stressful or it's not stressful. Yeah, I guess. I mean, you know me, I have lots of stories, but that's kind of like the gist of it, and I feel very grateful. Knowing. Well, one other little one. There's just a little one that which I've shared before. When Zeke was suddenly, it came up that there was a Rudolf Steiner school that would be wonderful for my new daughter, my stepdaughter, Elena, and who's low functioning autistic. And it was a Rudolf Steiner based school. And her mother just, was electrified by it immediately. And so we went it was out in Pennsylvania, and they loved Elena, immediately loved Elena. And but it was very expensive. It was, I don't know if it was $40,000-$50,000 a term or whatever it was. It was a lot. And yet it was clear that Baba wanted her in this school. That's the story where I asked Baba for a sign, and as we were driving up to the school, there was a big picture of Baba across from the entrance to the school with the words, "Don't worry, be happy." So it was clear Baba wanted her there. So I got back, I trusted Baba, if you want her to go there, then you have to make it happen. Turns out at the UN, they gave people from other countries who worked at the UN in New York got an education grant for their children because they were displaced from France or whatever country they were. American citizens didn't get that, with one exception. There was a disability education grant, and it was significant. And someone told me about it. I checked it out. It was half of what the school's tuition was. And they said, that's okay. We want Elena. We like her. We'll accept that as full payment. And so she got to be there for 9 years. Baba takes care. Baba takes care. The main thing is to trust, not with the intention that the absolute trust that Baba is taking care, whatever it is. And you still have to do your duties. Baba says, don't shirk your responsibilities. You have to do your best to do right with your finances. But mainly, it's in your hands, Baba. And I love this thing, Margi, that you wrote, because I've never specifically said, Baba, I turn over my money issues to you. I still have tons of them, I can do that now. And how do you do it? You just do it. You just say to Baba, I'm turning this over to you. And you trust that he's going to, as Charles Haynes said, quoting Elizabeth, the prayer at the beginning, that if you pray at the beginning of the day, that day is the answer, what turns out that day. And my mind has gone blank, so I must be finished.
I think that was an amazing place to end. I mean, it's true. You just have to kind of do it. There isn't much to it. It's like that's a very Terry answer. Yeah, just give it to Baba.
with absolute sincerity, that that Baba is taking it. When you sincerely give. Darwin Shaw, who I didn't have a lot of contact with, but at one point I was sitting at a meal table with him at the refectory and his family, and one of his daughters, I couldn't really reach to him to ask him, but I said, but how do you make this happen if you want something to do, but you feel like you can't, you're not sure if you can do this thing, whatever it is. And she said, pure New Age, she said, just affirm that you're going to do it. Just affirm to Baba that you're going to do this thing. You're going to, not a strategy. You're going to, I can't think, but not like you're trying to do manifesting like The Secret, but no, you just affirm it, and that has the power, especially if you're saying it's a Baba. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Tony. Next up, we have Jennifer.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for this topic. When I read the email, I was like, oh my God, I'm definitely going to show up. This is my first time on this Thursday night group. But I have always been a worrier about money my whole life. I think it came from a lot of insecurity earlier in life with my family stuff. There was a lot of financial back and forth, and that carried with me. So I've always been worried about having enough. I've always had enough, but I've always been worried about enough, come close to losing everything off and on a number of times. But one thing I did, I started lighting my own little Dooney fire just back in the winter. And in December, I did a Dooney fire, and I was a little nervous about it because you know how you give something to Bob and the next thing you know, everything just blows up. I gave him my finances. I gave him my finances and I gave him my work. And I am an entrepreneur. So the income that comes in is all based on my appointment schedule and people coming to me and sending me their animals and the various things I do. So that was a big give. But it's been so interesting because I am a worrier, but that worry really has gone away. And I can't say that anything necessarily has really changed, except for that worry. I feel like Baba took that away from me. And whenever I start to think, get a little nervous, I just think I gave it to Baba. And the other thing I always say, because I do an unusual line of work, but I think it's the work that Baba has for me, I just reiterate, if I'm not supposed to do this, just make it really clear where I am supposed to be. So those two things together, I think, have given me a lot of peace. And I have to credit that completely with Baba. So that's what I wanted to say tonight. Thanks for the subject.
Yeah, beautiful. Wow. Thank you. But no, I mean, something that you said really stuck out so much, that it's like your situation didn't change. It was just the relationship with the worry that Baba took away. Like Baba didn't change anything about your finances, right? You're still doing all the things that you do, checking off all the boxes. The only thing that was clouding it was the worry. And, all we have to do is give it to him.
Right. And I think by lessening the worry, I think it opened the possibilities more for me, because I wasn't clouding them over with hopes and wondering and concern. I can just go about the work I do. And, you know, you'll have, and you're an entrepreneur, it sounds like, so you'll have days when there's no one to see or nobody's made an appointment or those sort of things. Well, I use those days for other things now. You know, okay, what am I doing? I'm working on an online course. That's what I did all day today. I used that time instead of using that time worrying about what I wasn't doing. I think, how do you want me to spend that time, Baba? And it's made me listen more really deep inside here to listen to that voice that's guiding me. And that gets covered with worry. So that's been another big benefit.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, up next we have our grandmother, Marion. Good evening, Marion.
You're muted, Marion.
This was the perfect topic for me. Thank you, Margie, because this has been lifelong in my life, money issues. And so I have my timer on, so I don't take up a lot of time because I could spend 4 hours talking about this. So it was only after I was older and doing my professional training as a transformational therapist, that's mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, was I able to go back and dig apart my life, you know, that and see what did I come in with? What were the misconceptions I came in? What were set by my parents and so forth? And so I had a tremendous understanding about that because I was born into a very hardworking Midwestern family in Missouri. And what was normal to me then, later I learned was not very normal, and nor was it very healthy because I worked so hard. My father owned the town drugstore, and he was like an icon in this town. And there were 4 children in the family. I was the youngest, and we all had to work at the drugstore. Well, when he told me when I was 12 that I had to do this, I was a junior high cheerleader, and I would automatically become a senior high cheerleader if, you know, you automatically got put in there. And so, but you had to go to the games, all the sports games. I couldn't because I had to work at that drugstore every other night. And by the time I was 13, so there was never any consideration like what I had to give up to do that. It was just understood my father ruled the roost, and that was it. So the thing that I learned in retrospect was that these beliefs, and this is what the key is knowing what I believe, because it's the mental body first, then the subtle body of feeling, emotion and feelings, and then it manifests into the physical form. So in doing all that work over the years, I developed a lot of tools. So I still use them all. I still need them all. And I'm so grateful I have all these tools in my toolbox to use. And so what I learned about that with my father, when he told me I had to work at the store with my sister, who was 2 years older, we both started at the same time. They treated us like twins. I said, we wanted to go work at the town dime store. We had all these wonderful ideas. He just totally dismissed that. And then I said something about an allowance. And he said, no, you have to ask. You'll get more if you ask for what you need. So here I worked at a store. I never got paid, never got an allowance. And I worked, and I was so good at what I did. I did the soda fountain. I did all that stuff. I sold things off the shelves. When I got older, I could take the ingredients off the shelf for the pharmacist to do I was amazing. So there was never a real, thank you, you're doing a great job. None of that. So you can see, so in my training, these are called images. They're the lens that I have put on that I would look through in life. And that's work real hard. So when I eventually went into advertising, I became a single mom. I had 2 kids. I finally went into advertising. I had good money, but I did enough work for 3 people and got paid for 1. And it was during the women's movement. So I was one woman with all these men I had to work like 3 times as hard to do anything. So I have all of those beliefs that were set up for me. So I've had decades of dealing with this. So it came down to all these tools. And one I have on my refrigerator is belonging to the Unexpected Income Program. And it's a sheet of affirmations. And I go in there. I used to do it every day, but now I do it whenever I think of it. It's on the refrigerator. And I do my emotional freedom tapping while I'm doing it. So I tap out any negative stuff. And it's so wonderful. And years ago, when I first did it, a very dear friend of mine had died. And her daughter was resolving the will and all. And the day after I started doing the unexpected income program, she called me and said, my mom left some money to 3 of her friends, and you're one of them. It wasn't a great deal. I think it was like $1,200. But to me, way back then, this was like, it was the day after I started doing the unexpected income program. And it's about allowing. And then someone explained to me about money, which I've always carried with me, that money is one symbol, not the only symbol, one symbol of the power of manifestation. So mine shows up as money, but other people's will show up in other ways. Their relationships, or how they feel about themselves, or how they manifest something else. So I understood this was only one symbol, not the symbol of the power of manifestation. So I still have, so I got into, I've done every 12-step program there is with money. I've done it all. I have all these tools. So right now I let go of some of my business during COVID, because some of it was organizing for people. I have to go in homes and offices. I didn't want to do it anymore. So it cut down on my income, more going out than coming in. So I'm facing that now. I have some reserve. And then I'll wind up, because this is so prevalent. I've worked on this my whole life. A funny thing happened, because what I do and what I was taught, that the things I blatantly worked on so hard, they don't just go away, those beliefs. They get more subtle, and I have to listen more and listen in more clearly. And so now when it comes up that I know I'm going to go out and have to buy something or whatever, an unusual thing, I can feel a shift in my body. It's not a loud thought, but I can tell it's a shift in my energy. And that's when I tell Baba, because I was taught the first step of transformation is observation, not trying to be different. So my first step is report into Baba. So this whole issue, this whole life has brought me so close to Baba. There's been so many miracles in my life. It'd take me forever to tell you all around money. So many absolutely amazing things that have happened. And now when it comes up, I feel this shift in my energy and I say, Baba, here it is again. I'm believing that I'm not going to have enough money for XYZ. And I'm just letting you know. So it brings me close to Baba. And so the other day, I'll end with this funny thing. A spiritual teacher taught me every time I open my mailbox, I'm in an apartment building, so it's a wall of ones you open with the key and open your little door in the mailbox, that every time I open that mailbox, say, I just love getting checks in the mail. And so I practice that. And it's the idea is like attracts like, and to raise my energy. Sometimes I forget, and then I get a check from, I have one client out in another state I still work with, and she sends me a check in there. And I sometimes forget it, but when I get the check, I just say, Baba, I just love getting checks in the mail. And I do my rave. So the other day, I get my mail. There wasn't a check for my client. And it's from the Nielsen, polls, when they do the Nielsen thing where you evaluate products and all that. And I open it up and there's a $1 bill in it, a $1 bill. And it made me laugh. I haven't gotten a $1 bill in the, like for decades, So here it is. It says, if you complete our survey, which is very simple, we will send you $5. And I just laughed and I said, Baba, thank you for this sign. Thank you for this gift. I love getting this $1 in the mail. And then I'm going to get $5 for filling out that. So I'll end with that I can now laugh a lot. And when it comes up, I can tell Baba immediately and let it go. I still have to pay a lot of attention to, where I'm going to get it from and how I'm going to do it. But anyway, so I'll end with that. Thank you so much.
That's great, Marian. Thank you so much. I love that story and everything else you shared too. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Ralph Jackson.
Marion's story is sort of set me on a new line of thought since I raised my hand. And so I'm not sure I know what I want to say at this point. But initially I had one thought, and that was, when we talk about giving things to Baba, how does that done? And what is that, like a miracle? Should we expect a miracle when we know we're in a tough spot? To pay the rent, to pay keep the electricity going, the water flowing, the roof over our head, the food on the table. And maybe it's just you don't see how that's going to happen. And though we love the unexpected checks, those have grown fewer and fewer. So I remembered the confidence one has to have versus the worry that can incapacitate one. And then we need to function in these crises. And Marion is talking about functioning. Whether it's Baba gave her that from birth, I think it's wonderful. Who was like that? Mani is a person like that. Some people have that. And some of us are kind of just like snails, we don't have too much of that. And Baba once told Gene Shaw used to share this with people at times, and I may not get it quite right, and Jeff, I'm sure, has it down pat, that Gene was at the center or perhaps at Ojai when Baba was there. And she shared the story of when Baba had told everyone to go out and view the nature at Ojai and to take him with them. And Jean, in her mind, she imagined holding on to Baba's hand as she went out to enjoy the natural beauty of the Ojai. And then something happened that Baba did something that confirmed that he was aware that he was, and confirmed that he was holding her hand. But on the other hand, on one occasion, Jean was sweeping the floor. And I don't remember the circumstance or the place, but I think Jeff will. So perhaps he'd like of a broom. And Baba telling Jean, he said, while she was sweeping, Baba said to Jean, what did he say, Jeff? I think he said, I'm the broom that you use to sweep the floor. But perhaps he meant something a little bit more than that. And I'm asking Jeff to step up and maybe tell that story better about the broom, because
I remember that. I can't remember it well enough, except that she felt that sweeping was kind of in doing it, she felt it was a little bit beneath her. And Baba basically indicated that, not even to be able to think in those terms of something that just you're sweeping is not something beneath you at all. But yes, oddly, I can't remember that, even though I heard it quite a few times. Yeah. But I'm glad you remember that.
I have heard that Baba said that even if you are a lowly street sweeper, be such a street sweeper that when you pass by, all heaven and earth proclaim, my God, there goes a street sweeper.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of what Baba conveyed to her without all the words there, but yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Jay Baba. All right, up next we have Diane and maybe Terry again.
You might actually. This is a great topic because it's the topic that I think everybody's parents said you don't talk about sex, religion, or money. So I'm trusting that the next two sessions will be the other.
About sex and religion.
Sorry. There's so many aspects of this conversation that I'm all over the place, but I was kind of like Tina in that aspect that I was brought up in a doctor. My dad was a pediatrician. And at that time, that was not the doctor that made the most money. That was the doctor that put in the most hours. My mother always made that very clear to him. And but we had a nice house, and I never thought about money, but I had a great work ethic. And I was making money, and I remember I had lost my favorite ring. It was an initial ring, and my dad took me back to the store. It was in the farmers market here in LA, so there were booths, and he bought it for me. And I said, but I don't have the money to pay you back. And he said, if I can't give the people I love the money, hey, bless you, dear.
Sorry.
If I can't share the money I make with the people I love, why am I making the money? Beautiful. And so that was a mindset that I had. And not having money worries, that was just not on my radar. And I would think in this lifetime, that's just not one of my themes. My theme, I have other themes. And when Terry and I met, we came from very different economic situations, and we approach things very, very differently. And I have been lucky that somehow there always seems to be something. The check is, I am waiting for the postman because Terry's first Medicare check is supposed to be in the mail today. So
Social Security.
Social Security, not Medicare.
Yeah.
Similar, sorry about that. But the idea of giving it to Baba, I think helps structure the thinking I've always had. And that is, don't worry, I'm never gonna spend the last money that the earth will have. There is more money to be made. It is not drying up. At least that's the illusion I'm living with. And so because of that, there's always opportunity. And I don't do side hustles. I do one hustle. And I can't, it's a lot of hustling in that one hustle. And I'm looking to quiet it down in the next year or so. But I think I'm going to all of a sudden get worried about money. So I'm trying this. That's why this conversation is so good. So I would love some magic tricks about, how one gives it over and just trust the Baba, except for maybe to remind myself that has been the narrative of my life, and to trust that. I just didn't know it was Baba that was making it happen, and now I do.
Yeah. It's almost like he's given you were the one who was responsible for your whole life. And now he's made it clear that he's responsible. So he's taking you out of the equation to really see if you can trust him. No, beautiful, Diane. Yeah.
All right, and Rich?
This is really a great subject. Of all the Baba lovers I've ever known, no Baba lover wants to approach this with any amount of real vigor with other Baba lovers. Because if you have money, and when I was visiting Myrtle Beach and then even in Denver, there was a woman who inherited money and she worked. There was another woman who inherited money and she really didn't work. And so I've known people like that. I've also known people who came with absolutely nothing, and I worked for him, and he is a multimillionaire near here where I live. and he didn't even speak English, came from the Basque country, and he has the Midas touch. So all this comes down to me is sanskaras. Whatever your sanskaras are from your past, that's what you got. Now, how you, what abilities you have to use that, to me, there's a couple, three forms. One is, first, money is what money really is a participation in the economy around us. You don't dig in your backyard and find, $2,000 for rent. Is that going to happen? And my dad used to say, well, wish in one hand and do something else in the other and see which one fills up first. So I am a very, very, very poor person to be talking about this because I was so irresponsible when I was young. And I was doing absolutely nothing when I heard of Meher Baba. And over time, particularly in the Denver Baba group, a couple of good friends really assisted me in sort of facing the world with what talents I had. And what talents I had turned out to be what my dad did for a living. He was like a mentor to me. And I learned most everything on my own. But it turned out that I ended up having pretty good mechanical ability, and any sort of craftsmanship sort of technique I could learn on my own, and I have. But overall, I would have been camping on the street in Oakland or Denver or whatever else if it hadn't been for some push and shove that Baba was a part of. And one of the big things was when I moved to this location, I had a good job, but I was managed to obtain a house that I could afford. And so I worked 2 full-time jobs for at least 20 years. I gutted this house. I completely remodeled it, every wire nut, bolt, screw, window, everything. And it's really nice. It really is nice. But the fortunate part was that Baba put me in this house. I knew from day one, this is really Baba's house. I'm a renter here. And my job was to make this house as good as I could for whatever talent I had. So that really came about because of Baba. And I've always felt totally at peace and with Baba here in this house. But my life economically, the world is a place where people who really focus on money, for whatever reason, and their ambition, their abilities, they can have money. And then there are those at the very top, but that's a whole different world. But work ethic for me, and coming from my family, doesn't matter who you are, you must be responsible for yourself. And you can't have other people paying your bills, your debts, whether they're emotional, relationship, or economic or anything else. And so that's what Baba has forced me to live with and learn in this life more than any single thing. And my continuing karma is a result of what I've done, whether it's good or bad, constructive or destructive, and the results and the consequences. But fortunately, we have Baba to hold on to his Dhamma so that he can drag us through the mud, and maybe drag us to the top of the mountain to go skiing. Anyway, thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I love that you just mentioned that it's been like your life's journey, right? It's not something that you just snap your fingers. It's like, oh, I turned my finances over to Baba. It's like, I like what Jeff always says. It's like it's like you're in a cafeteria and those weight loaded plates. You take a plate and then you turn around and the stack is the same, and you keep going and you wait a minute, but eventually you get to the bottom of the stack. All right.
All right. And speaking about Jeff, here's Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff, you just muted yourself.
Oh, how weird. I came from a very fun-loving family. And so it really, and we were well enough off, but when you don't have it, whether we had money or not, it didn't matter because fun is really cheap. You can play, sports, you can go hang out in the woods, you can go swimming and all that. So I never really thought about money. And then, then I came to work here at the center after a lot of odd jobs. And, they really didn't pay you much here. I think when I first started here, it was like 250 an hour or 350 an hour. I didn't rely upon my parents at all, but you know, most of my life became very inner life. So I really didn't need anything externally, and I didn't have to have anything fancy. I mean, I had this one car that I got for $150. From one side, it looked really good. The other side was totally smashed the whole length of the car. You know, so if I went to a fancy neighborhood, I'd always park that smashed inside of the car near shrubs, you know, so that it was, you know, they just see my good side. But we had to do stuff like this. I went for 19 years without going to a dentist in order to be able to go to India every year, you know, I mean, but it was kind of crazy, but I haven't really had to worry about finances, even though I should have, but it all worked out. It's not something I worry about. But I remember one time I came back from India and I thought, oh my God, I don't have any money at all. And I looked at my account and I misread it. It was actually $3.96 I had in the bank, but I read it as $396. And I'm thinking, wow, that's unbelievable. You know, I got plenty of money, but even that, without worrying about money, I was spared having to worry about money, you know, just by my own kind of, you know, fun-loving nature. But the one thing that I did learn from my mother, and this is something I don't quite know how to describe it, but I feel, and I gathered from my mom. See, my dad worked and he invested and he worked every bit of money he worked for. My mother was very generous. I mean, unbelievably generous. And so if there were any inheritances that came, they went to her. Or all these great things came to my mom because of her generosity. And then when the money came to her, she just gave it out. And she never really had to deal with it and what I learned from her is that, no, this is just my opinion. If you don't want to worry about money, be generous. The universe favors the generous. You know, I mean, if there were a number of people lined up, homeless people, the person you would want to give money to or support is somebody who had been generous in the past. And you can kind of pick it up, you know, who's generous. So the universe favors the generous. That's just my opinion. But another interesting thing is that a lot of people around here, they worry about money, and I tell them, you're going to live into your 80s. The only thing you got to worry about is the humiliation of going into debt or I'm talking about Baba people. I mean, they're not going to starve to death. You know, it might be embarrassing that you're, you know, sleeping on a sofa somewhere, but you're going to make it into your 80s. That's the way I think about it. But now here's one story. But I think this might have been one of the 55 Sahabas at Mehrabad. And there was one guy there, and Baba indicated, you know, what are you worrying about? You know, you seem to be worrying. And the fellow said, well, the gentleman said, I left my shop, you know, with my assistant, and I'm kind of worried about how he's doing. And Baba said, I'm paraphrasing, my gaze is, I see the entire world. Can I not look after your shop for 4 days? So Baba does look after, it's the worry about humiliation and having to ask for money or help that makes it a little more difficult, you know, but but let me see if there's anything that I was.
Now, Jeff, can I ask you, since you mentioned your early days,
yeah,
is it true your official residence back then was someone's tool shed in their backyard?
I did. I stayed, you know, it doesn't matter where I sleep. because when I'm asleep, I don't know, I could be on a sofa, I could be on the floor, I could be in a queen size bed. I don't, having a junky car does not make me, does not diminish my self-esteem. I guess I can say that. It's not, that's not my thing, especially. So anyway, this is.
I was riding with Jeff one time I'm pretty sure it was an older Subaru, and we were driving over to Nan's new house, and I've been a mechanic, and I'm saying, Jeff, I think you got a wheel bearing going out on your right rear wheel. You better get that checked out. He's probably been driving like that for months,
My on my car for the last 15 years, it says check engine. The light. Anyway, it's, in a war zone, or where a place are bombed, you can find the kids are all running around having a good time. We can have fun wherever we are. That's just kind of my feeling, and fun can be very cheap, inexpensive. So anyway, that's my check-in.
Thank you, Jeff. Something just came to mind that when I was in my late teens, kind of early 20s, I was living in Myrtle Beach, and I used to love to throw parties, and I still love. That's like my greatest joy in life, is throwing these big parties for everybody in Myrtle Beach. And when I throw a party, I do really out. I just go out there. And I remember, what'd you say?
All out.
Oh yeah. I just go all out. Cause to me, it's like, if I was entertaining Baba and the Mandali, I would go all out. I wouldn't serve chips and salsa. I would serve gourmet hors d'oeuvres. And I can remember having no money at that time, but somehow I would spend $500 to make these elaborate parties happen. And I don't know where the money came from, but it just always worked out. There were these elaborate, beautiful parties for people to come to. It was great, but Baba takes care of it.
That reminds me, there was one guy that lived here, Lynn Ott, who had met Bob and everything, but he had this line: the money you used to go to India on your pilgrimage is not part of the world economy. So some of these things are just not part, even to say, having a $500 party is just, when it comes from a generous spirit, it's not part of the world economy, where you have to work and then you work and you get. It comes in from another dimension. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Jeff.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Margie. All right. $500 parties when you're in
Yeah,
Myrtle,
Peter, are you thanking me for the party or am I sharing? I know you were there.
For both. All right. Next up, Tony.
I'm unmute. Hi. So one thing I wanted to mention just before, when I talked about the money coming up for Elena to go to this Steiner school for 9 years, before I found out about that allowance at the UN, the question was, where's the money going to come from? And my wife used to quote Deepak Chopra saying, wherever it is now. Which was a very helpful reminder. Anyway, what I wanted to share just now was my appreciation of how much Baba sometimes seems to participate so directly in these chats, and also his sense of humor. Knowing this subject was coming up, two interesting things happened today. First, cost of living has been going up a lot, and for various reasons, we often have to order food in. My wife's a wonderful cook, but she's got care of Elena, and it's getting more and more expensive and concerning. And the other thing in the background is I had 3.5 weeks ago, I had medical procedure to basically to shrink my prostate gland, and it's a progressive, a new thing, and it's mostly non-invasive, but it's like an angiogram. And I had an angiogram when I had a minor heart attack some years back, and it cost like $150,000, but it was covered by Medicare and my insurance. Anyway, the two things that happened today is I got a notice from the UN Pension Fund with an extraordinary cost of living increase effective this month. So this stress I've been having over the extra expenses we've had. Then I got another piece of mail from Aetna, which is my secondary insurance, telling me that the procedure that I just had cost $99,000, of which I would be liable for $39,000, and then some other sub items that I was ready to. First, I was going to exult over the cost of living increase, and I went, "This is Baba's. Thank you, Baba." And then I was going to panic, and I realized, "Thank you, Baba." And almost certainly they failed to submit the claim to Medicare first, or otherwise the secondary insurance wouldn't even have called me. So probably it's still not going to be any money out of my pocket. But Baba really wanted to bring it up, that it is all about, the lesson for me has been, it's all about trust. It's all about trust and knowing that Baba is taking care. So.
Beautiful. Wow. This conversation's been great. I was like a little bit nervous to put it out there because I was like, oh boy, I hope this isn't a taboo subject. And I'm glad that we addressed it. I think it's really been like a beautiful night. So thank you for everybody who shared, because a lot of people shared some really personal stuff. But I think if that's all, if nobody else has anything to share, Marion's got something.
Just one quick little last comment, because I do sometimes have little stand-up routines for my family, and one is about the new humanity as I project ahead the new humanity, of course. It's fun. It's fun to do. And so I'll just drop this in here for people. I have been part of a time banking movement for over 30 years. And if you don't know what time banking is, it's not time sharing, it's time banking. And it's not a bartering system. It's a sharing and a caring. And it is the wave of the future, which is happening now. And there are time banking springing up all over the earth. And it's about, so this economy is not going to stay. It's going to shift in some way at some point, because we're making it very conscious. So I just invite people to look up time banking, because it is the wave of the future that is here now. That's it. Thanks.
All right, guys. Well, I think that we will, if we want to unmute and then do an Avatar Mayor Baba Ki Jai 3 times, and then we'll close up for tonight. Okay. Avatar Mayor Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Mayor Baba Ki Jai. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Margie.
Thank you.